The single dad froze the moment he entered the mansion, his breath stopping in his chest as though the world had suddenly tilted beneath him. He had come here to ask the wealthy CEO for a simple job, something to support his son after years of struggling alone, but instead he found himself staring at a massive portrait framed in gold, his late wife's face staring back at him with the same soft eyes he had kissed goodbye years ago. His hands trembled, the air stung in his lungs, and every memory of her flooded him at once. In that instant, the world felt unreal, like he had stepped through a tear in reality and found his past waiting on the other side. But nothing could have prepared him for what came next, for the truth that would unravel everything he believed about his life, his marriage, and the woman he thought he knew. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of fate to reveal truths we never expected, please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. Ethan Miller had lived a life defined by love and loss. After his wife Claire passed away unexpectedly 3 years earlier, he became a single father to their son Noah, raising him with quiet strength and aching gratitude. But the grief never left. It hovered like a shadow behind his smile, heavy and constant. He had poured everything into giving Noah the stability she would have wanted, working odd jobs, repairing old cars, cleaning shops, doing anything to afford the small apartment they called home. Yet no matter how hard he worked, the bills grew faster than his income. Eventually, he found himself on the brink of losing everything, his home, his savings, and the little security he had built. But then came a rumor that changed his fate. The powerful CEO of Hartwell Industries was hiring personal staff for his private estate. The pay was more than Ethan had ever earned. It was his last hope. The CEO, Adrian Hartwell, was a man wrapped in mystery and wealth. He rarely appeared in public, and when he did, he carried an aura of sorrow behind his polished charm. His mansion sat on a hill overlooking the city like a lonely fortress. People whispered about him. Some said he was cold-hearted. Others said he carried a wound no money could heal. Ethan didn't believe the gossip, but when he stepped inside the mansion for the job interview, he sensed something heavy lingering in the air. There was a stillness in the halls, a quiet ache, as though every room carried memories trapped within its walls. Ethan followed the butler down an endless marble corridor, trying to calm his nervous heartbeat. The mansion felt too grand, too polished, too untouched by real life. Then he reached the gallery hall, and his world shattered. There she was, Claire, his Claire. Her portrait hung massive and radiant in the center, illuminated by soft lights as though she were royalty. His breath strangled in his throat, and he staggered forward, touching the frame with trembling fingers, feeling the familiar outline of her face beneath the glass. It made no sense. She had never mentioned knowing a man like Adrian Hartwell. She had never spoken of working here. Her portrait displayed like she belonged here. Before Ethan could make sense of his spiraling thoughts, Adrian Hartwell entered the hall with a slow, controlled step. Ethan turned toward him, confusion and shock merging into a storm inside him. He felt as though the ground had cracked open. Adrian's eyes landed on the portrait of Claire, and a flash of emotion, raw, painful, unmistakable, crossed his usually calm expression. At that moment, Ethan understood that this wasn't a coincidence. It couldn't be. The CEO's grief-filled gaze mirrored his own. In the long, suffocating silence that followed, Ethan's mind battled with every possible explanation. Had Claire lived another life? Had she worked here? Why had she hidden it? Why was her portrait displayed with such devotion? Every unanswered question dragged him deeper into fear and heartbreak. He felt betrayed, confused, and terrified of what the truth might be. He had come for a job, but now he needed answers more than he needed money. Adrian finally spoke, not with arrogance, but with a sorrow so deep it made his voice tremble. He confessed that Claire had once worked at the mansion many years before she met Ethan. She had been a young artist then, hired to restore old paintings and document the family's ancestral portraits. But Adrian revealed something more, something that shook Ethan to the core. Claire had been Adrian's closest friend during a time when both of them were lost. Adrian had been a shattered young man, grieving his own parents, drowning in the responsibilities he was too young to handle. Claire had been the only light in his darkest days. She had painted that portrait of herself as a gift, as a symbol of hope, because she believed he deserved a life brighter than the shadows he lived in. But then she left, without goodbye, without explanation. Adrian searched for her for years, but she vanished completely, until Ethan spoke her name during the interview request he had submitted days earlier. It was then Adrian realized the truth. Claire had moved on from her painful past, found love with Ethan, built a family, and created a life she had never wanted to burden him with. She hadn't betrayed Ethan. She had simply tried to protect Adrian by leaving before he grew dependent on her kindness. Hearing this broke Ethan in ways he didn't expect. He felt a strange mixture of sadness, anger, relief, and gratitude. He realized Claire had been carrying more than he ever knew. She had given her heart to him and Noah, but a part of her past had remained locked away. And now that past stood before him in the form of a man who had loved her in silence, cherished her memory, and mourned her long after she was gone. Then came the unbelievable part, the moment neither Ethan nor Adrian could have anticipated. Adrian revealed that Claire had left behind something more than memories. Years ago, she had written a letter addressed to the future father of her child, knowing she would someday find the courage to start a family, even if not with Adrian. She left instructions that if anything ever happened to her, Adrian should deliver the letter to the man she loved, no matter who he was. Adrian had kept that letter for a decade, waiting for a name, a sign, anything that would lead him to her husband. And now, standing before Ethan, he handed him the sealed envelope with trembling hands. Ethan opened the letter later that night at home, tears blurring the ink as Claire's words wrapped around his heart like a final embrace. She apologized for the secret she never had the strength to share, explained the brokenness she carried, and begged him to raise Noah with love, patience, and belief in second chances. She wrote about Adrian too, not as a lover, but as a lost soul she once helped heal. Her final words told Ethan he was the only man she ever truly loved, and she hoped that someday he would forgive her imperfections. If this story has touched your heart, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps bring more emotional stories like this to people who need them. And before the ending, please comment below and share which moment in this story touched you the most. Ethan returned to the mansion days later, not for the job, but to thank Adrian. In that moment, their shared grief became a bridge rather than a barrier. Adrian offered Ethan a position, not out of obligation, but out of genuine desire to help the family Claire had left behind. And so the incredibly unlikely bond between a billionaire CEO and a struggling single father formed, rooted in love for a woman who had changed both of their lives in different ways. Together, they built something new, support, understanding, and a promise that Claire's memory would be honored not through sorrow, but through acts of kindness that rippled far beyond the mansion's walls. In the end, Ethan realized that Claire had never truly left him. She lived on in Noah's laughter, in the letter she wrote, in the portrait she painted, and in the hearts of the two men whose lives she had healed. And as he stood in the gallery once more, looking into her painted eyes, he no longer felt grief breaking him apart. Instead, he felt gratitude holding him together, proof that love, in all its mystery, continues long after goodbye.